Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are viewing me from. My name is Afolabi Kumavo. I am an historian, a researcher of history and diplomatic studies, a researcher of peace and conflict management. I also dwell into culture history. And one thing I want to talk about today is Nigerian people and culture. In most of the universities in Nigeria, Nigerian people and culture is one of the university-wide courses that students must undergo and pass before they can graduate. I might not be able to dwell into the synopsis or the outlines of the course, but I will just tell you that the essence of this course is to familiar Nigerian university students with the history of Nigeria before colonialism, during colonialism, and after colonialism. Today, I will talk a bit about the people of Nigeria, that is, the various ethnic groups that made up of the present country called Nigeria. Of course, most of the times, Nigeria is divided into the south and north. Let me try as much as possible this day to cover the historical origin of the various ethnic groups in the southern part of Nigeria. I mean the southern part of Nigeria. At least, if you look at the southern part of Nigeria, you will find out that there are at least 6 major ethnic groups. And one of the major ethnic groups is the Yoruba. We also have the Bini people in the same south. We have the Igbo. We have the Ishekiri people. We have the Urobo people. And we have the Ijaw people. The next question we should ask ourselves is this: where did these people migrated from? Like I used to say, that the history of the whole world is the history of nothing but migration. All the people you find in Nigeria today migrated from somewhere to their present locations. I would like the historical origin of Yorubas to be our first topical issue. Like I said earlier, that one of the major ethnic groups is the Yoruba. Although the Yoruba people can be found in virtually every part of the world. If you go to Brazil, you will see Yoruba people there. If you go to Cuba, you are going to see Yoruba people in good numbers. Go to Trinidad, all over the world. But majority of the Yoruba people can be found in southwestern part of Nigeria. namely Ogun State, Lagos State, Osun State, Ekiti State, Oyo State, Ondo State, and there are also many in part of Kwara and Kogi. These good people of Nigeria, the Yoruba people, they practice Christianity and Islam, but majority of them also practice African traditional religion. Today, of course, many of them will say they are Christians and Muslims, but they have still not forget African traditional religion. So they are traditionalists to the core. The group is believed to have come into an existence at about 1000, 2000 before the Common Era. Originally, the migration or the history of these people are highly controversial. Controversial in the sense that so many scholars, they have always come with versions. Reverend Samuel Johnson is one of the prominent historians that has written extensively about the people of Yoruba. According to Samuel Johnson, he said that Yoruba people came from northeastern parts of Africa. His belief is that if you look at the cultures, the practices, the traditions of the Yoruba people, you will find out that there are similarities between how the Yoruba people conduct their burials, how they conduct their namings. In fact, the artwork of Yoruba people have some semblance, similarities with that of Egyptians. And Samuel Johnson draw his conclusions that for that reason, Yoruba people might have migrated from somewhere around Egypt. Because if you look at the artwork, their terracottas, their bronze works and all that, they look so similar. Now, there is also a legend, a tradition, a story that trace the origin of the Yoruba people to Eledumare, the supreme being. It was believed that Ife was founded by Oduduwa. Ife was founded by Oduduwa. This legendary account claimed that Olodumare, the supreme being, directed Orishanla to come down from heaven to perform the creation job. And that before that time, the whole world was filled with water. So, Orishanla was given creation materials like a very long chain, snake shell with sand inside and cockerel. The task was for Orishanla to come down from heaven with those creation instruments to come and create the earth. But as they were coming, Orishanla branched somewhere around and got himself intoxicated with delicious palm wine. So Odudua had to withdraw the creation materials from Orishanla and climb down from heaven using the long chain Olodumare, the supreme being, gave to them. And that the first place where he got to was Ile-Ife. And when they climbed down, he had to drop he turned the snail shell down, up the side down, and sand came out of it, and from which he dropped the cockerel that had to scatter the sand. And it was the job of scattering the sand by the cockerel that made the earth to fall. Those places where the cockerel couldn't get to is what you now have today as water bodies. So Ife was founded. It is believed that the expansion of the world today started from Ife. Ife in Yoruba means expansion. The whole world got expanded from Ile-Ife. That is why they say Ile-Ife is the cradle of the world. But that is a mere legendary account that cannot be proven historically. There's another story that said, of course, Odudua founded Ife, but he did not came from the heaven as espoused by my previous story. And that Odudua is actually the son of Lamurudu. And they migrated somewhere from the Middle East to their present location. Akinjogbe said, one of the famous historians, Akinjogbe, said Odudua engaged in supremacy battle with the existing group in Ile-Ife. Of course, people were already in Ile-Ife before Lamurudu migrated from Middle East to come and settle down at Ile-Ife. But because of his military prowess, he was able to engage the people and overpowered them. Odudua became the original owner in Ile-Ife and formed the oldest dynasty. One thing you will see from the versions of history that I just narrated to you is that we cannot discuss the history of Ile-Ife without making reference to Odudua. That means Odudua is undoubtedly the progenitor of Ile-Ife, although scholars have not been able to reach consensus on the history of Ile-Ife till today. Before I go into the next group in southern Nigeria, let me quickly discuss the socio-political organization of the people of Yoruba people. Because Oduduwa's last son, Oromiyan, had to go and form another city elsewhere, and that is Oyo. Oyo became very popular and highly sophisticated in political leadership. And the first major popular Yoruba political institution that became an empire was that of Oyo. At the top of the government, I'll summarize this. At the top of the government was the Alaafin. Alaafin is both the spiritual, political, and traditional head of the then empire. He wielded so much power, both politically and spiritually. But he's always been checkmated by the Council of Seven Kingmakers. that is famously known as Oyomesi. Oyomesi is headed by Basharun. They had the responsibility, the power to checkmate the excesses of Alafin. They were also the kingmakers. When a king is nominated following the approval of the oracle, they had the responsibility of performing the necessary rituals on the king. When a king goes recalcitrant, wayward, or against the practices of the empire, they had the responsibility of ensuring that the king commits suicide. When they pronounce three things on the king and say the earth rejects you, the people reject you, and the gods reject you, and the king will have no choice than to go and die. Alafin is also assisted by Aremo, the eldest son of the king. We also have the Ogboni cult that provide or prepare charms for the king. And of course, the cavalry, that is the Oyo army. The Oyo army is always headed by Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò, that is not allowed to stay in the city. And of course, Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò is expected to defeat enemies anytime there's a battle. And he also have the responsibility of expansionism. Expansionism in the sense that he is expected to ensure the expansion of the kingdom. That is, they are to acquire more areas, territories, and force those areas to pay tribute to Oyo Empire. The job of making sure that is achieved is the responsibility of the cavalry headed by Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò. There are also a number of other officials like the provincial leaders and so on. I don't want to waste so much time on that. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, another group of people from the south is the Benin people. Benin people are very crucial to the history of the people of Nigeria. You will agree with me that the first set of people to be visited by Europeans were the Benin people. And they had contact with the Benin people as early as 1472 Anno Domini. Just like the history of Yoruba people, the history of Benin people is also a very controversial one. And there has not been a single correct version of that history. In other words, there are so many accounts about the origin of Benin people. One account claimed that the Benin people emigrated from Egypt, and that in the course of their journey southwards, they settled first of all